Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of yell out loud kind of things on microphones because I'm a ring announcer and I'm running out of things to say in that moment of the intro.
These are getting just progressively worse.
That might have been the worst. I'm a ring announcer, cage announcer, etc., etc. And I am joined this week, as I always am, by my two amigos, both of whom bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, he is in New York, and his microphone is functioning. He is Marc Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
We had some issues prior to this show. If you're watching this on video, with this little screw right here, not wanting to remain connected. So hopefully my mic does not fall out during this show. But yeah, I'm scrambling over here to get my rankings updates noted to share later and all this because we are doing this on a Monday night. So it was a bit hectic to be ready for a Monday night, right. But we're trying our best when we can to get these recaps out sooner for you guys. And obviously this was a fairly heated card in terms of the discussion and where people stood on this main event. So here we are cranking this baby out.
That's right. I do think earlier is better if we can manage it, obviously. All right, and introducing now, he is in an undisclosed location in the state of Florida, the Sunshine State. He is the Nicaraguan nightmare. He is Omar Artola. What's up, my friend?
What's going on? I did not make it to the gym this morning. I was too fucking tired, and the cuddles with my wife were too real, and so I said, fuck all that. And I stayed in bed, and I made it up later in the afternoon. But that is, and I am now sore because I went for 2.5 hours straight. So that has been my day.
That's nice, man. Hey, you know what? I have some solidarity with you. I too, I didn't make it to the gym today.
No, wait, I did. I made it later.
Oh, you did? Oh. Okay.
I didn't go in the morning.
Sorry.
It was too much in the morning. But I went in the afternoon and I worked out. So I did like a strength class from 4 to 5, which is like weights and mobility and stretching and stuff like that. And then the next class is at 5:30. So I had a half hour to kill. So I was like, one of my boys was there. I was like, yo, you want to hold some pads and just do some work? And he was like, yeah. So we held pads and did a few rounds for half hour. And then I did a whole other class from 5:30 to 6:30.
Cool, man. Good for you. Hey, my little one is 9 months old now, and whereas my older guy, he was never capable of co-sleeping. He would just like squirm around until we were like, okay, enough of this. My little guy, shout out to my younger son because he is fucking best baby. He is like just a lump. He's just a lump of potatoes, and he's so cuddly. He's just the freaking best, man. He's a good baby. That's all I'm trying to say. We're very lucky.
Wait, so you were saying that you want him to co-sleep? You're happy about co-sleeping?
Yeah, I mean, it's all right.
Huh.
In spots.
I feel like everyone I know who does that is always like, oh, I don't know. I can't wait till this is over.
I think
I used to deck my mom when I was in bed. So she did not like me sleeping with them.
Our older son never could do it at all. Like not for 10 seconds. He would just wake up and just squirm until we were like, okay, enough. So now we're kind of like,
We have never let either child in our bed
ever?
One time ever.
Why?
I don't want to break that barrier. I don't want my kids in my bed.
Oh, interesting.
I want my bed to be my bed.
Okay.
They have a room.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
I mean, to each their own. I'm just saying that's where I'm at.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't even have kids, so it don't even matter to me.
Well, gentlemen, you know who did not cuddle at all? Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. There will be no cuddles between those two grown men. Okay. Segues are hard. Well, boys, we have pretty much half of an episode for our listeners and viewers tonight because we're going into a dark weekend this weekend in terms of there being no mixed martial arts on the calendar. But I have a feeling that we're going to have still a fairly full episode replete with lively discussion about this recent card, UFC 297 Strickland versus du Plessis. We're going to talk about these major fights on this main card, and I suppose we'll throw all of the prelims or into the lightning round, or unless you guys want to discuss some of the prelims at all.
No. I caught up on all of them today, so we could do this on a Monday night, so we're going to talk about all of them.
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't do this work for nothing.
Okay.
Lightning round.
Yeah.
Wait. I'm confused.
I said I caught up on all of them today for the sake of this show. So we are going to talk about them. I didn't do this catch up for nothing. So
I'm just the lightning round, Mike. Just the lightning round. Normal lightning round.
I'm saying, do you want to recap them, any of them, or do you want to throw all of them into the lightning round?
Yes, all lightning round.
Jesus.
I thought you were saying, should we ditch them all together?
No.
We're getting our shit together here, people. We're going to be fun.
Okay, before we get into any fight talk, let us address the audience. First of all, we're so sorry. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Hit the bell icon, subscribe to the channel so that you never miss an episode. Drop us a like, all those things that are free to you but help us out so much. And of course, our favorite form of engagement is the comments section down below. We want to hear from you guys, and we want to engage in that thoughtful MMA discussion. If you like any of our takes, let us know down in the comments. If you disagree with any of our takes, we want to hear your take down in the comments below. As always, keep it classy. If you want audio only, hey, we got you there. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, find us on social media. You can find us on all the relevant platforms at @andnew_MMA show. Okay. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Dricus du Plessis, who this past weekend, in front of 18,000 strong at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at UFC 297 as one of the headliners, defeated Sean Strickland for the UFC middleweight championship, and he is now the new UFC middleweight champ and the first ever South African UFC champ. Here we go. But it went the distance, all 5 rounds, and the scorecards were razor close. Yeah, it was a mess, and it was a close fight, man. So I'm going to throw it over to Mark first. Mark, do you agree that it was a close fight? I think it was close. Pretty much every round was like, oh, my God. Especially on the rewatch. I rewatched it earlier today, and I just thought, this is even closer than I remember it being. I'll just say it now. Upon the live watch, I just felt like Strickland barely edged it, and on the rewatch, I'm actually less convinced either way. How did you see it?
So, yeah, I mean, of course, I agree that it was a very close fight. I don't think anyone is going to tell you that it wasn't a close fight. But I will say that I don't have a great taste in my mouth about it. And really? I think if the decision went Sean's way, I would have felt better. And don't get me wrong, like I will talk through this. I'm going to give props to both guys. It was a great fight from both guys. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dricus. I'll explain in a few different ways what kind of bothered me about this going his way. To start, as I said, great fight. I thought both guys put it on the line. I thought both guys proved a lot for Dricus. I think he really put the gas tank questions to bed. I think he also showed that he's not just like a brawler for those that kind of saw him as that. He showed he can fight a tactical fight and make adjustments. For Sean, I think he showed that he really is at the elite level now, which some people were doubting, to give a guy like Dricus problems that no one else has. He showed again how elite his defense is, never even being hurt by a guy who has hurt everyone he's fought in Dricus. So I think they both showed that they're championship level. And frankly, I wouldn't be shocked if we see this one again down the line. But I don't know that I think they got this one right. You know, Dricus fought a great fight, and I'm really happy for him. And the fact that he was able to complete his journey here and become the first South African champ. I remember everyone from South Africa who was commenting here on our videos after the Whitaker fight, and y'all were crazy passionate, and I'm happy for all the South African fans, and this must be incredible. I can't even imagine what it's like down there right now. So props to everybody for that. Enjoy it. He deserves it. I'm not saying he doesn't in any way, but it's just, I don't think it was the right score. I think Sean should have won that fight 48-47. And I will walk through it. Round one, I don't think anyone's debating this one, was all Sean. He came out, he controlled the distance, he was jabbing Dricus's face off. He checked every kick. All of Dricus's punches hit air, and Sean popped up from the lone takedown in about 10 seconds. So that was 1-0 Sean, clear. Round two, I thought was very, very close. I was torn watching it live. I was torn on the rewatches. I've for what it's worth, I've rewatched this fight twice, so I've watched this fight a total of 3 times now. I ultimately landed on saying that Dricus's late adjustments and couple late blitzes in that round managed to steal it, because I thought he was behind. I do think he ended up taking it as close as it was. So I will score that one for Dricus, and we have an even fight. You could see toward the end of that round that he started to figure out how to work around Sean's jab a little bit in the final minute or two of round two, and how to touch him a little bit, which he was also struggling with. But then round three came, and I thought Sean reestablished a lot of what he did in round one. I don't really see why it seems like so many are just easily scoring this round for Dricus. I think he lost it. I don't think he landed very much. I thought Sean controlled the round again. He fought behind the jab beautifully. And to me, it was a Sean round. I was watching it on these rewatches, searching for, like, why is everyone so quick to score this round for Dricus? And I'm trying to, like, come up with a way. And it was a Sean round every time I watched it. So obviously, you know how I'm at 48-47 already here. But round four was Dricus, very obviously. He got the big break of what now people are saying was a headbutt. He's saying it wasn't a headbutt, but obviously Sean got busted open, and from that moment on in that round, Sean really struggled. He was not seeing the right hand at all because his eye was covered in blood, and finally it was landing, more than once. Dricus also got more aggressive when he saw that blood with the wrestling too, mixed in some takedowns. I mean, he really stamped round four for himself. But for me at that point, it was 2-2. And then round five was very clearly Sean Strickland. It was his best round of the entire fight. There were periods of it where he was landing at will in that round, and probably with the hardest shots that he had landed all fight also. So for me, it was 48-47. And I think the reason if that's all it was, just it comes down to round three, how you score it. And I guess round two, because I do think they were both really close. I don't think I would say I had this bad taste. I would just say really close fight. It's got to go to somebody. I think what I am struggling with a little bit, why it doesn't feel right, and I think other people are kind of feeling the same thing, is that Sean won 2 rounds, clearly. Dricus only won 1. So then you're seeing both of the really close rounds go to Dricus, which feels a little bit like it gets back to like hating the 10-9 point system, because it doesn't quite feel like that's fair. And again, if you're scoring this as an overall fight, pride style, like I always bring up, I don't think a lot of people are saying Dricus won the overall fight. I certainly think Sean won the overall fight. So for those reasons, I think it feels a little bit off, because it's like when you just think back on the fight quickly as a whole, at least for me, my brain is like, yeah, Sean was better. So I think that's why it's bothering me a little bit. I think that's why it's such a hot topic right now, because as I said, round wise, if you want to give 2, 3, and 4 to Dricus, you can. Again, I said I kept landing on Sean for round 3, but I guess I get it if 2, 3, and 4 are going to Dricus. So that's what I mean when I say I feel a little strange about it. But Sean doesn't have much luck in splits. I really think a lot of people, or I guess a lot of judges, I should say, don't realize how few shots are actually landing on Sean. Like, he blocks and slips so many shots. And on top of that, he checks nearly every kick. It's unbelievable how many kicks he checks. His defense is incredible to watch. So I don't know if judges realize enough how much he is causing to miss or blocking. But with all that being said, again, I'm not at all trying to take anything away from Dricus. He went through the fire. His face looks like it was getting hit with rocks all fight long, and he came out the other side as a champion. He found the adjustments he needed to make. He convinced 2 of the 3 judges that he won that fight. So he is the champ. Props to him. It was a great performance. He's only going to get better, and we will see who he's in there standing across from next.
Omar, those 2 judges were Derek Cleary and Eric Colon. Both scored the fight the exact same way, giving Strickland the 1st and 5th round and du Plessis 2, 3, and 4. The dissenting judge was Sal D'Amato, who only differed on the 3rd round. So D'Amato gave Strickland 1, 3, and 5, and he gave du Plessis 2 and 4. How did you score this fight, and what are your reactions to the fight overall?
I thought it was a great fight. I think, especially with Strickland fights, you get into a very pitter-patter back and forth. Like, a lot of guys will sometimes set up a lot of different things, and they'll be timed to put combinations together and stuff like that. But Sean Strickland's style is a very pressure-based and very forward type of style. And so there's a lot of jabs, a lot of things. You know, as soon as you try to settle in, he's usually trying to throw something to disrupt. And I think that's one of the things that's really worked for Sean over the course of a lot of his career is he's a very awkward style. He has a very awkward style, and he's a very awkward fighter. His ability to not have a rhythm that can be easily picked up when you're in there, it seems, I think works to his advantage. I think the more awkward that he is, the harder it is to really figure out what he's doing, or even figure out how to work against it. Du Plessis kind of has something very similar. He's also not very traditional with how he fights and how he stands and how he moves forward. So he's also a very awkward fighter. And I think that's kind of what had Sean potentially a little off for certain moments there. But I think the fight overall, I think it was a really close fight. And I said it even when the second fight had finished. I was like, this is going to be a messy fight. Yeah. This is going to be one of these fights that once it goes to the judges, it really could go either way. And that's exactly what it was. 2 and 3, I thought, were the messiest rounds of the entire fight. And just like Mark said, when you really look at the other 3 rounds that are not messy and extremely clear, du Plessis has only won one of those 3 rounds, one of those 3 very clear rounds. And Sean won 1 and 5 very clearly. So your mind does kind of take you there. Like, it doesn't really seem, because 2 and 3 really could have gone to Sean in certain respects. You could make a case for either one. And so when you're left with the ones that you can't really argue about, you're left with Sean up 2-1. So it's a messy fight. It's a messy fight that also won't get a resolution because they're not going to run that back right now. So we're just going to have to deal with it. And I get it. We've run into these situations before. We don't run into it very often, I feel like, in championship fights, at least not this close, this controversial sometimes. But I mean, that's kind of the way that it fell in this specific fight. I personally had it for du Plessis for 2 and 3. I think a lot of it had to do with the momentum. And I think Sean gets into a style sometimes where visually him on the defensive all the time allows du Plessis to look like he's on the offensive and doing something, even though he might not be landing very, very frequently, like clean, right? A lot of these things are getting blocked, but like Sean is also in those moments not throwing back. And obviously once you get to a certain spot, Sean obviously puts on his bike and he starts to go forward and he starts to do what Sean does. But there was a lot of back and forth moments of that throughout the fight. And I think 2 and 3 were probably some of the hardest ones to walk away with a clear winner for those rounds because of that stuff. I mean, I think it was really about what you preferred. You know what I mean? Sean's style sometimes is not the most traditional, right? So some people might not value the way that he fights over the way that perhaps du Plessis decided to fight rounds 2 and 3. Honestly, who knows? Because we don't get to talk to the judges.
I wish.
But yeah, I just thought du Plessis had a little bit more variety in round 2 specifically. And I think in round 3, I remember the hooks that he was throwing throughout the entire fight, he was landing later on in the rounds. Like he was trying to calculate the distance, I think, for the entire fight. And I think that although he wasn't landing a lot of those punches, it did keep him active and it made Sean go on the defensive. And there were moments where some of those hooks, they were getting closer and landing and clipping. And you know what I mean? And there was a certain progression that is difficult to ignore in those moments. And I think it might have swayed the judges a certain way for some of those rounds. So either way you slice it, man, it was a messy fight. And I don't think anybody should die on this hill for either one of these guys in this fight because it was messy. It was a very close fight.
I mean, rewatching that second and third round, I was like, I wanted to cry. I was like, if I was a judge, if somebody was like, gun to your head, I'd be like, just pull the trigger. I don't know. You know? Watching the second and third round, I was left with this thought. I mean, kind of similar to how the 10-8 has become, the scoring of 10-8s has become more liberal. Why not 10-10s? Why can't we do that? I felt like both those rounds, I was like, who the fuck? How would you score this 10-10?
If we didn't score Carla and Rose 10-10, they're never going to use 10-10.
But
ever.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Mark, what were you going to say?
Can't we come to a point where we use this? If we're not going to change the system, can't like they tweak? You know what? Damage matters more now than it used to. Takedowns with nothing done matter less than they used to. So like we can tweak things. Why can't we say like when a round is even, we're going to use 10-10? Or even if we don't want to do that, let's make what a current 10-8 means. Let's make that be 10-7. Let's make 10-8 mean clear round. And let's make 10-9 be that. Because then you'd have 3 10-8s in this fight. And the winner of the fight would be Sean Strickland. No.
I
would have been a
may
draw
be
if you gave both of the rounds to Dricus. Now that I think about that.
That's so interesting, though.
I may be in the minority, but I really love sudden death rounds. If it's a draw, just throw them the fuck back out there and see what happens.
I mean, I would
for one more round. Well, what if that's an even round?
It doesn't matter. Oh well.
How about if it ends in a tie, then you go to power slap rules. Sudden death with power slap. They're like, they bring out the batons. They're like, hold the baton behind your back. Come on, Sean.
Oh
I mean, how much fairer would that fight feel if it was like, all right, round 1, 10-8, Sean. He won it clearly. Round 2, all right, so we're going to go with the Dricus perspective. Dricus eked it. It's 10-9. He's down 1. Round 3, Dricus eked it again. We're tied. Round 4, Dricus 10-8. He's up by 2. Round 5, Sean evens it up. It's a draw. Like, that's what that fight felt like.
I guess,
That just sounds so much more fair than what we currently have.
Would you? Yeah. I mean, I almost wish that fight was a draw.
Yeah.
Would you be upset if it was a draw?
I mean, there was no way to score it as that because there was no 10-8 round.
Yeah,
right.
I don't. It didn't feel like a draw to me. It just felt like a fight that wasn't.
Like a draw to me.
It didn't feel like a draw to me, but it also felt like a fight that wasn't over.
Let me ask you this question. I agree with that, and it bothers me if that blood was from the headbutt because Sean really got whooped in round 4 once he couldn't see, and it sucks if that's from a headbutt. Not bothers me. I mean, it happens in fights. I'm just saying it sucks.
I was going to ask about that.
Pride style scoring. You have to hold up a card at the end that says who won the overall fight. Who are you holding up?
I probably would hold up Sean Strickland, especially because of how that fight ended.
I would, yes.
Especially because of how that fight ended.
Yeah,
I was going to say that earlier.
I think is why people are struggling with it.
The thing about the Strickland aspect of it is that what Strickland succeeded in doing was making the pace of this fight more of a Strickland fight than a Du Plessis fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Du Plessis did not manage to do the DDP battering ram thing to Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland turned it into his pace of a fight. It
was more than that.
Parrying game, yeah.
It was also the distance, man. I mean, the way that, dude, if there's anything to give, this motherfucker has like GSP level fucking jab. Okay, the way that he can use his jab and just stun somebody that they are like, you can't move forward. It's not an option.
DDP was saying he never felt the jab like that. So
yeah, his face says that all. I mean, he was beat up from 2 punches, basically thrown the entire fight. Sean Strickland didn't throw shit but a jab and a cross the entire fight, and his DDP's face looked a mess.
You know what says a lot about how good Dricus du Plessis is at things that maybe people don't see. And this is kind of in a backward way. But Sean Strickland in this fight, one, managed to move forward a lot, and people were wondering who would be able to move forward. I mean, it was back and forth, but Sean had a good amount of moving
It
forward.
was more Sean.
Two, did prevent what I was saying last week about how Dricus is always able to crash the space and like slam into people with these big strikes. And he couldn't do that to Sean because Sean was always in his face, and that part of Dricus' game kind of got taken away. And Dricus had to try to fight a little more technically. So that's two that Sean accomplished. And three, didn't let himself get out wrestled. Sure, he got taken down, but he was popping right up every single time. So Sean did all three of those things, and Dricus still found a way to win that fight. So
Yeah.
That tells you that Dricus still, I guess, but even by me, is being underrated because he found a way through all of that.
Great point. Other people scoring this fight, MMA. What's that website? MMA Decisions. Yeah. Nearly right down the middle for these two guys, if not edged for du Plessis. Looks like 55-45 split for du Plessis. Three guys from Sherdog in the live play-by-play went split decision for Strickland, but a fourth guy who was among the MMA Decisions website scored it for du Plessis. So pretty goddamn close, guys. Pretty close. Yeah. Oh, also,
it was close, for sure.
When I was rewatching it in the third round, Dominic Cruz, who was doing color, he said, while the fight was going on, he said, if it goes to the scorecards, it's going to be about damage. And right now, du Plessis is wearing a lot of damage. I think that's I might be paraphrasing what he said. Yeah. I think he was commenting on how even the fight was up until that point, midway through the third. And he was saying, if this goes to the scorecard, it's going to, maybe damage is going to be the tipping factor.
Yeah, well, then Sean ended up bloodied as fuck, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and the damage thing is something that I don't know if there's clarity amongst everybody in the MMA community about how that's supposed to work, because it's not like, it's like if he didn't get touched again for like the fourth round, there's no damage, right? Dude, du Plessis' face could have been completely fucked up anyway, but like it's not like you carry that damage into the fourth round from a judging perspective.
Yeah. Dominic Cruz, this is a quick sidebar, but Dominic Cruz has been doing this for a while, since they started emphasizing damage with judging, where he will just like repeat over and over again, like, well, this guy has a cut, so there's nothing he could do right now. He's losing unless he just really dominates. And he's been doing it more and more. And on this card, he did it in like 6 fights. Like he just kept saying it. And to the point that I was starting to lose my mind. And John Anik was like, this is getting out of hand. And he literally on the broadcast was like, Dom, the cut only counts in the round the cut happens. Like it doesn't just get progressively scored again every single round. And,
yeah.
Or no, now, he said the damage. And then Dom was like, well, what if it's a cut? Then that does. And he was like, no, it doesn't. Like you don't just score the cut perennially. Like, and he was like, oh, all right. Like, so I was
now, if you had if you have a cut in round 1, right, and you've made it bigger in round 2 and made it worse, then that's right. That's different. That's not, but you can't just, have a cut going in round 2 and be like, well, he's already losing. That's
Dom
not
seems
how that
to live in this world now where if a guy gets a cut, he's like, well, he's going to need to hit him with a missile, otherwise it's over.
That's probably how Dom needs to fight, dog. He's like, well, I'm cut. Got to kill him.
Yeah.
Well,
but anyway, circling back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what could be next for these two guys. The new champ, DDP, Dricus, still knocks du Plessis. He calls out Israel Adesanya on the mic in the cage right after. Mark, what do you think of that?
So I always had in the back of my head that if Dricus won this fight, I thought we may see Dricus and Izzy get booked as the UFC 300 main event, just because it's lacking a huge main event, and that obviously is a huge one. Now, obviously they brought it up in the post-fight, and Dricus was like, I'm down. But I don't know if he can actually turn around that quickly. I don't know what the doctors had to say about the damage on his face. Maybe it's all superficial and he's good to go. I don't know if Izzy is ready for that date, but it's always kind of been in my head of like, there is no surefire main event. Like, is it going to be Leon and Bilal as the main event? That doesn't really feel like a UFC 300 level main event. So it's always been in my head that maybe it would be this. So we will see. If Izzy isn't ready, maybe we do actually see Chimaev get a title shot. I don't know. But even if it's not UFC 300, it feels like Dricus and Izzy is the fight that has to be made.
Omar, what do you think?
I did watch the post fight where they asked Dricus about that, and Dricus is like, "You see my face, right? Like, like it's like I'm a little fucked up right now." But I'm sure he would, well, maybe not, because he didn't jump at the opportunity to fight him the first time when he could have. So he might not jump at this the second time at this point. But I guess we would see. But that's the fight I want to see. I can't imagine anybody wants to see any other fight in the middleweight division involving Dricus du Plessis other than Israel Adesanya. That fight has hype at this point for what, a year, 2 years at this point. I mean, they went really dark with their shit, and it's stuck. And I'm sure that if they tried to revamp that up, this like African rivalry or whatever the fuck is going on there, that would spark nice little ratings.
I was actually happy to see that Izzy congratulated him today, and like not in a real backhanded way. Like really said, he was like, Dricus is the 4th African champion in the UFC. I am actually proud of him. Like awesome for South Africa, but then he ended it with something like, but he said what he said, and he still needs to pay for it, like something like that. But he did actually like acknowledge it, which was kind of
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Sean Strickland. Where does he go from here? Omar, any thoughts?
I had Sean Strickland fighting the winner of Costa versus Whitaker.
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't think he's fought either of those guys, right?
I don't think he has. Not one.
Mark, your thoughts?
I actually think there's a lot of options. I guess you can kind of see how these play out and how great the winners look, but he could fight the winner of Costa Whitaker, and it'd be great. He could fight the winner of Alan Vettori, and it'd be great. Well, I guess only if it's Alan. I don't know if he would actually fight Vettori because they train together. Or he could fight a returning Jared Cannonier, who he had an incredibly close split decision fight with, and Cannonier's right there at the top too. So yeah, there's a lot of options. I think they probably end up watching how this Whitaker, Costa, and Alan Vettori fight play out before they start booking anyone else.
I just want to point out, if there's any fighter that I am pretty sure will fight everybody he knows, it's Sean Strickland. I'm just saying. Like, I understand the friend thing is like a thing in MMA, right? We've seen dudes all the time. Like, I'm not fighting.
You think he'd fight Chris Curtis?
I think fucking Sean Strickland will fight Chris Curtis. Will fight Chris Curtis's mother. I think he will fight everybody. Okay,
I agree.
I don't think he gives a shit. Especially now where they're at the tippy top of the division anyway. Like, I think I think he turns nothing down at this point.
We will get to Sean Strickland's teammate, Chris Curtis, who was on this main card in a little bit. But let's turn our attention now, gentlemen, to the co-main event, once again, of UFC 297 that went down at the Scotiabank Arena this past Saturday in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And in the co-main, in the women's bantamweight division, Raquel Pennington finally captures UFC gold by winning the now vacant UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship, defeating Mayra Bueno Silva by decision. This one was unanimous. The scorecards read 49-46, 49-46, and 49-45, all for Rocky. Omar, start us off. What are your thoughts of Pennington finally winning the belt or a belt, and what were your impressions of this fight?
Happy to lose this pick for sure.
Window.
I really thought Mayra Bueno Silva would be the more athletic one in there. Would be, I guess, especially in the striking, I thought she'd be a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more technical. But I don't really know what her deal was, but there was something that she didn't seem like she was fighting the same way she's fought previous fights. I don't know if the moment got to her. I don't know if she underestimated Raquel, right? She looked like there was a lot of it throughout the lead up to this fight. There seemed to be a lot of this like attitude that her becoming a champion was a foregone conclusion. And not like DDP, right? DDP was like, I see myself as the champion. I know I'm going to be the champion. It wasn't that. It was like, Raquel ain't shit. I'm going to run through Raquel. And she just seemed so overconfident the entire time. She seemed extremely over emotional getting into the cage. Once the things, the Bruce Buffer started announcing her, like
Dude, that was so uncomfortable.
She was on one in there. It was weird. It was weird and very uncharacteristic of her, right? She's a weird girl, don't get me wrong, but it was very weird, and it was not the Mayra Bueno Silva that I expected to see, that I think could beat Raquel. But that's not Raquel's problem. And if there's one thing about Raquel that you can count on, is her consistency. Win or lose, that girl is going to fight her fight. And that's exactly what she did. Mayra Bueno Silva could not for the life of her figure out how to get the best of Raquel. Tried to reverse a couple positions here and there, but Raquel is a scrap, man. Raquel does not fuck around. And her striking, I thought, was pretty damn good. Her counters, I thought, were pretty damn good at times. But the takedowns, especially later on in the fight, once Bueno Silva seemed to hit a massive wall in her cardio, Raquel was just on top of her, just beating her. And I thought it was great, man. I thought it was a really good performance from Raquel. I thought it was a long time coming for her, man. She's had such a long career, such an OG of the women's MMA community. I couldn't be happier for her. I mean, it was amazing to see. And I'm really happy to see that she won, and that we're going to get her and hopefully Juliana Pena to finally squash this beef, or at least fight it out.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, it kind of played out how I thought it would. You know, I trusted Raquel so much more in this spot to find ways to win this fight. And I wasn't sold on Mayra Bueno Silva as this level of talent quite yet, or at least not against a girl who is nearly impossible to submit in Raquel. And we saw that. You know, Silva had plenty of chances, but Raquel was always calm and always worked her way out of them. You know, at this point, Raquel is just a girl who has seen it all and done it all. And she wasn't fazed by the grappling pressure that Silva was bringing. She was more than ready for it. And it was very obvious from the jump that Raquel had the advantage striking in space, which was funny because Silva was calling herself the best striker in the UFC coming to this fight. And actually, the only person it wasn't obvious to was Raquel, because she kept clinching. And it was like, girl, what are you doing? But, I get it. The clinch is usually such a huge part of her game that I guess it just felt natural to her. But, man, every time they separated, she was just piecing Silva up. In round 2, she had her pretty badly hurt at one point, and then she clinched again. So, you know, it could have gone worse for Silva maybe if Raquel tried to stay separate a bit more, and her coaches were screaming that too. But it wasn't happening. But it was pretty competitive through, like, the first, I would say, half of the fight, two and a half rounds. But then in round 3, you had that moment where Raquel prevented the takedown with a choke at like the minute and a half mark or whatever it was, and ended up on top. And we didn't know it at the time, but the fight took a major turn at that point because Silva's energy dropped significantly. Like, she sat up at the end of round 3 and had a look on her face like, oh my God, how am I going to do this for 10 more minutes? And to her credit, she did come out with a bit of a burst in round 4 and gave herself a chance with that choke again, but same thing. Raquel just pushed through, got on top, and then landed shots and won the round. And round 5 was obviously all Raquel because Silva had nothing left. So she wasn't ready for the championship rounds, and Raquel was just better. You know, more experience, more well-rounded, tougher, more heart in that fight, more prepared. I mean, everything. It was her night, and she deserves her time as the bantamweight champion of the world. Definitely happy for her.
Staying with you, Mark, who do you think could be or should be Pennington's first title defense?
Oh, it's got to be Pena, yeah. Raquel did a good job in the interview. You know, that'll be a clip they use where she said she's been waiting for this fight for 10 years. You know, there's a little bit of heat on that rivalry, so I'm sure we'll get some shit talking between the two in the build-up, and it'll be a good one.
Omar, you agree?
Yeah, Juliana's already been talking shit even before the fight. So Juliana knows how to sell a fight, if nothing else. I think that's the fight to make, hands down. When you make it, I guess, is probably the tougher ask, to be honest.
Ooh. Well, you know what? I met Juliana Pena at one of the APFCs last year, and I shook her hand. So, she's my girl now. We're best
I was
friends.
going to say that's how I feel about Raquel, but I picked against her, so maybe that's not entirely
Who are you going to root for in that fight? You like both of them.
Yeah, I do. I probably will pick Raquel, though, to be honest.
Well, I said root for, though. Who do you want to win?
Raquel.
Oh, okay.
Raquel. Yeah, Juliana has gone full heel for me, so it's easier to root against her.
She's
now.
not full heel.
She's
She
not.
full heel?
She is full heel, dog. She's not fucking Conor McGregor. Your coach is a terrorist. Full heel, but like she's a heel for sure.
All right, she can be a little bit of a heel. Let's move on. Here we go.
Wait, Silva? We're gonna match up Silva or no?
Oh yeah, my bad. Mark, matchup Mayra Bueno Silva.
Not like I had some incredible idea, but I just didn't want to skip her. I think a fight against Irene Aldana would make sense and be a pretty good scrap and a good test of, again, how she would fare against a girl who does have some grappling skills of her own and is a threat on the feet.
Like it. Omar?
I'm pretty sure Mayra Bueno Silva and Ketlin Vieira have not fought.
No, that's the other one I considered, actually.
Yeah, that should probably happen because who the hell knows what Ketlin Vieira is doing in the first place, and she's got a really high ranking, so get to work.
Oh, baby. Like it. Like it. All right. Moving out of the championship bouts, we go to another main card fight that went down in the welterweight division. This one was disappointing for me. Neil Magny defeats Mike Malott by TKO in the third round at 4:45 of round number 5. So only 15 seconds left in the entire fight. Neil Magny, kind of a come-from-behind victory. My goodness. Mark, start us off. Give us your impressions of the fight overall and the finish that Neil Magny managed to get out of there with.
What a crazy result this ended up being after what we watched for the majority of that fight. I mean, Neil Magny, and I think he would agree with this, put forth a pretty pedestrian performance for about 13 minutes there. Like, he's kind of waiting. He's getting beat to the punch. He's getting out wrestled. You know, I was honestly questioning if he was mentally shaken confidence-wise after the way that Ian Gary styled on him, because he just looked like he didn't quite know what he wanted to do in there. And then I found out that the answer to the question was that he was not mentally shaken because he never quit on himself. He fought back up when Malott was in mount. He got his own takedown. And then the whole fight changed because it was almost like Malott didn't really have much left after he got taken down. Like it seemed like he didn't have the energy to even defend on the ground. So I don't know if he gassed or what, but either way, Neil Magny just went for the kill because he knew he needed it, and he poured it on and got a huge finish. And, you know, he did a great job controlling Malott in that spot and raining down to the point that he forced the ref to call that fight in Canada in a fight that Malott was gonna win, and he gave the ref no choice with 15 seconds left to wave that thing off and make sure that he got it. So tough one for Mike Malott to swallow. You know, he was fighting a great fight throughout, again, in front of the Canadian fans, you know, thinking he's on his way to a win, and then it went south super quickly. But Neil Magny does it again. The guy is still here, and he's not planning to go away, I don't think.
Omar, your thoughts?
It was a rough one for Malott, man. It definitely looked like he hit a massive wall. I mean, it didn't, it's weird to say that he gassed because he didn't look tired, but he also looked like he couldn't do shit. Like his body just wasn't working, right? Like,
you're saying once he was taken down?
Yeah. Like afterwards,
great.
he just had nothing. He had nothing left, but like he didn't, you know, we've seen dudes in there look exhausted. That's not what it looked like. It just looked like he couldn't do it anymore. Like like his body just couldn't fight the same way after that. It was really weird. But Neil Magny's not the one to fuck with, man. I mean, there's a reason why gatekeeper for him is almost a term of endearment, where for others it can be a slight. You know,
Okay,
like
sure.
Neil Magny is the one who lets you know whether you're ready for shit or not, and he told Mike Malott that night he was not ready.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. Mike Malott was handily winning that fight. And I read in some recap that Mike Malott was like too tired when that happened, when he got taken down. I think when I watched it, I thought, oh, I don't think he's tired. I think he got stung by that Neil Magny ground and pound, that Magny immediately started firing. I think he was hurt. There was a
You think
point
that's
where
what it was? He just got stunned like right at the beginning.
yeah. I mean, I think
Could be.
and there was a point where Malott he would have been what's the word, sweeping him with like an ankle pick if the cage wasn't there. But then Magny
Oh yeah, I know that spot. Yep.
But then Magny kind of turned, and I think Malott successfully eventually got that kind of a sweep. But then Malott just like turned to his right. And I was like, oh, he's I don't think he's gassed. I thought he was so hurt. And he just didn't have
Very
enough
possible
to get out of there, man. It was disappointing was that Malott spent so much time in top position in this fight.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's like I wish he could have kind of given Magny some of that ferocity in return earlier in the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had his chances.
Disappointing. He did.
I mean,
have his chances.
it's a big. Here's what I mean by he's not ready. Malott doesn't seem to have like a very low ceiling. He seems like he's going to do just fine in the UFC, and the kid is super skilled, good looking kid. Canada fucking loves him. Kid'll be fine. But it was a big spot for him. You know, Magny's ranked. Magny's got a resume. He's got experience. And Mark, where was he on your? I'm assuming he's got to be on one of your up and down lists over here.
Neil or Malott?
Malott.
Well, nah, he didn't go down because he was already ranked like 40 something. So
that's what I meant though. Like where he was at was 40.
Oh yeah, I mean he hasn't beaten anybody yet. They jumped him all the way up to Neil Magny out of the clear blue sky.
And that's kind of my point. Is Malott was given an opportunity based on him talking, because he definitely talked himself up. The hype that he came in with from the outside of Dana White and everybody talking about, the Canadian backing, right? Because he can get those people to watch. It was a big spot. He could have capitalized on it. He could have been a ranked fighter fucking right now.
Yep.
But he didn't win. And so now we go back to him fighting guys in their, you know, in the 40s and the 30s, and we get him up there in a few more fights. But it's not going to be this to the moon thing with him for right now.
Yep. Agree.
God damn, Mike Malott. I feel bad.
I know.
He should have won that fight.
I know that one. I know that this is hurting, Mike. I get it.
Yeah, I'm a Malott fan, man. I'm like, this guy. He's going places. But it's not to say that I dislike Neil Magny. The guy's a fucking vet for a reason.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the winner in this fight, Neil Magny, the Haitian sensation. Omar, what do you think? Who Neil Magny should now fight blank?
I think Neil Magny is the person that I trust the most to let me know where people are at in their division, especially when we get all crazy and we hype people up and we're like, fuck, he looks really good and all this shit, right? I want to see him fight Michael Morales. I want to see where Michael Morales is. I want to see if this kid is as real as it looks like he is.
That's me.
That's the one I want.
Neil Magny, he barely got past Mike Malott. You wanted to go fight Michael Morales? You psycho.
I mean, he's a ranked fighter, dude.
Yeah,
you're right.
Defend the spot. And
You're right.
The dudes above him, for the most part, are very good. Like I don't think he has, as much as I would like to reward Neil for this win, I don't think beating Mike Malott and doing it in the fashion he did earned him a fight with, like, you know, Vicente Luque, like, just to pick a random name.
Right.
Like, so I kind of think he's still, you know, if he wins another one, maybe we're there, but I think he's still in this gatekeeper role. And yeah, the guy I'd like to see is Michael Morales. I think he's ready for that test.
God, you think Morales is ready for the Neil Magny test?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
He just beat Jake Matthews.
Correct.
And it's also the way that Michael Morales fights and the way that he beat Jake Matthews. Like, his performances have been impressive. And
Yeah.
it's only based off of the way he fights and how he does things that makes me think that he could really put something on Neil Magny. That it'll be a good fight at the very minimum.
But it's interesting, right? Like Morales is so long. Who else is so long? Neil Magny. Can Neil find success in the clinch? Could Neil possibly take him down and we see what happens? Like, it's Neil's still an interesting test for these guys. And I think that's a good fight for Morales.
I'm just looking at Neil's record, man. He just wins one and loses one, wins one and loses one. So it's time now for him to lose to Michael Morales, I guess. It's like clockwork. I mean, he did rattle off a nice 3-fight win streak in 2020 of all years against Lee, Jing Liang, Anthony Rocco Martin, and Robbie Lawler before losing to Michael Chiesa at the beginning of 2021. And he's been basically 500 since then, beating Max Griffin, losing to Shavkat, beating Daniel Rodriguez, losing to Gilbert, beating Phil Rowe, losing to Ian Gary, and now he beats Mike Malott.
He's fighting killers, though, man. Yep. I mean, he's fighting.
That's the thing about being like you're saying, like the gate. You say it with that it's the title of honor, the gatekeeper of the division, but that means that he is constantly fighting against these fucking up and coming killers.
Yeah, if someone's ranked above him, they probably had to go through him to get there.
It's true.
Listen, in every video game, when you start your way up to the top, there's always the first boss that you got to get through, and the first boss isn't always easy. Not always easy.
He should change his nickname to the first boss.
Oh shit, you're absolutely right. That's such a good nickname.
That is.
Oh God. Okay, let's move on. Okay.
Malott.
Oh yeah, Mark, give me a name for Mike Malott should fight this guy now.
So I'm in the same place Omar was. He did beat Neil Magny for 13 minutes of that fight. So I do want to allow him to fight someone above him again, who is clearly better than the dudes he has beaten, because the talent is there. So I am going to go with another guy who recently got turned back by Neil Magny, and that is Phil Rowe.
Like it a lot. Omar?
I am in a similar mind frame of that, giving him somebody above him, allowing him to kind of put on a performance the way that we expect him to against somebody who I respect as a fighter, who I think is very well-rounded, decently well-rounded, and who knows how to win a fight, has not won all of his fights, but knows how to, and that is Alex Morono.
That's the other guy I almost went with.
That's a banger right there.
Nice. Very nice.
Yep. Me and Omar on the same page today.
Okay, moving to the middleweight division now. Chris Curtis defeats Marc-Andre Barriault by split decision. The scorecards read 30-27, 30-27 both for Curtis, and Marc-Andre Barriault earning a 29-28 in his favor. Omar, let us start with you this time. Who did you have winning this middleweight bout?
This fight was another one that's pain in the ass. It's the Sean Stricklands and the sparring style that these dudes have make it really difficult to come out of these fights with clear winners sometimes. I had Chris Curtis winning it personally. I think that Chris Curtis was just a little bit more active. I thought he landed a lot of the bigger shots, especially the body shots. I was loving the work that he was putting into the body, especially when they were nice and tight inside. He was just uppercutting right into the middle of this dude's midsection. Now, granted, Marc-Andre Barriault's midsection looks like it's made of steel, but Chris Curtis was piecing away at that body little by little. You could see it start to take more effect than what it started to in the very beginning. I mean, he was eating a lot of those shots earlier on, but he just got more and more tender as things go on. And I thought Chris Curtis did really good work in the striking department. I was impressed by the cardio of Chris Curtis as well. Sometimes I feel like we've seen Chris Curtis, unlike Sean Strickland, dip towards the later rounds. Volume becomes a lot less and output becomes a lot less and that kind of thing. I thought he was able to be consistent throughout the fight, which was a nice change to see. And I thought he made really good adjustments in that fight as well. And I thought he just stuck his face in Barriault's for the entire fight. That I don't think Barriault had the right approach to winning those rounds. It was a close fight. It's not like Chris Curtis blasted Barriault out of the water, but I do think that he edged all those rounds out.
Mark, your thoughts on this outcome?
Yeah, this was a weird fight for a couple reasons to me. Firstly, and I guess Omar agreed, I thought people were wanting to make it seem like this was closer than it was, particularly Derek Cleary, who scored it for Marc-Andre Barriault. I didn't think it was all that close. I thought Chris Curtis probably won every round, and at the very least won 2 of the rounds. But the other reason that it was weird to me is that until a minute or so into round 3, we didn't really get the Marc-Andre Barriault that we're used to seeing. For some reason, he decided to forget what brought him to the dance, which is his pace and his pressure, and convince himself that he should try to sit back and counter the counter fighter. But it didn't work. It's just not a fight that he's used to fighting, and he wasn't ready to fight it. And no, he didn't get dominated, but I did think he was losing pretty much throughout. And then when he finally switched back to fighting in his usual style in round 3, he had more success. Curtis still won, but you wonder if things would have been different if he did that all fight long and pushed the pace like that all fight long. Like Omar said, you wonder if Curtis would have held up the whole time. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure who convinced Marc-Andre Barriault that he should be a counter fighter in that one, but they were not smart, and it cost him. But all in all, it was a really nice performance from Chris Curtis. I love watching him box. I love his body shots. I could watch him throw body shots all day.
Yeah, dude.
But he needed this one to get himself back on track, and he got it.
People don't realize how specific you need to throw an uppercut to generate power in such a small space to such a small target. Like, if you ever, even if you guys were to try to go and learn striking and learn how to do things, like, your body is not going to normally be able to do that. Like, you're gonna cock back, you're gonna reach all the way back, like, you're gonna do a lot of these things. And the way that Chris Curtis is able to stay tight and generate all that power to the point where he is pushing back Marc-Andre Barriault while they're in clinch space, dirty boxing space, it's impressive, man. That's not an easy thing to do. Chris Curtis has some really nasty hands.
Dude, Chris Curtis is super talented. He is very good at MMA. And hearkening back to what you said earlier, Omar, your sparring comment. I don't know if you saw this, but Chris Curtis was on Helwani.
I saw the quote.
Who did he fire back at? Was it Dominic Cruz?
Dom. Yep. Yeah, it was Dom.
And what did he say? He was like, "Let me hit you as hard as I hit Barriault, and let me tell me if you think I'm sparring," kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying with the style that him and Strickland employ, but I wouldn't say that to their face.
It's not. I don't even really say it as a slight. The sparring style, what I'm referring to, that when I say sparring style, is when you see a lot of times when you see guys fight, they're throwing shit to hurt, right?
For sure,
almost all the time, jabs, crosses, punch. Like, it doesn't. They're generally throwing a good amount of weight behind a lot of their punches. Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis generally are throwing shit out there to throw shit out there, to interrupt, to do different things, but like, their punches are not always to knock somebody out. And that's what allows them to put a pace together, to put volume together, because they're not throwing 100% in every one of their shots. They're concerned about other things besides just throwing the shot. Some guys are just worried about landing a hard shot. Mm-hmm. When you look at Chris Curtis, man, he will pepper. He will do a lot of peppering, a lot of things like that. And that's usually a lot of times what you do in sparring. A lot of times it's about making contact. It's about understanding the space. It's about understanding the distance, how to move out of the way, being able to read the body. Like, especially when you look at Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis fight, look at where their eyes are. They're literally never looking at their opponent in the face. They're always looking at their chest, because they're focusing on how that's how they spar. That's what you're supposed to do. You look at the chest and you use your periphery to see everything that's coming. You can't stay stuck looking at one appendage, right?
Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
It is, but watch other fights. Not everybody does that. And when you get into these matches with a lot of guys who are just striking, they're trying to knock dudes' heads off from jump. And
Right.
Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland don't really fight like that. They are the type of guy they're the type of guys that are almost like meat tenderizers. They are slowly pounding away, little by little, by little. The more tender you get, the harder they start to go, little by little. And it starts to ramp up. And that's why you see Sean Strickland, round 5, fresh as a daisy, all of a sudden he's putting on another pace, right? He's throwing even harder than he was in the last few rounds. And it's not to say they don't throw hard ever. When there's an opening, a clear opening, they go for it. Look at Sean Strickland and Adesanya. I mean, they have the ability to do so, but the way that they fight allows them to keep that forward pressure. And a lot of it is from the way that they spar. And they spar the same way with one guy that they do the other. But all of these different looks allow them to adjust to different people on the fly so much better than some of these other guys because they don't have the same exposure to all these different looks, perhaps, that doesn't allow them to adjust on the fly. They don't have the same experience or ability to do so. Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis, for the most part, adapt really well to all their opponents.
That was one of my favorite blocks of a point that I have ever heard from you on this show. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Hey, man. I got to listen to it back because I already forgot it.
Cool. Let's match up the winner here, Chris Curtis. Mark, give me a name. Who should Chris Curtis fight next at middleweight?
Unfortunately for Chris, the division above him is really strong right now. And I'm not sure that he has earned a big jump by beating Marc-Andre Barriault. So I'm going to say that it's probably someone below him or like right next to him. So I will say one of two things. Either the winner of Fluffy Hernandez and Roman Kopylov that's coming up, I think would be a good matchup, or a weird style clash that could either make a fun fight or a shitty fight, which is Paul Craig.
Oh, wow. Middleweight Paul Craig. Oh, shit. Paul Craig is 6'4", and I think Chris Curtis is like 5'10".
Like
I said, weird fight.
Yeah, man. Hold on. What are your thoughts?
So I'm actually also in the same vein, but I don't remember that Chris Craig. That's not it. That Paul Craig is fighting Cal Barriault soon.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
wow, I totally missed that.
I had Chris Curtis fighting the winner of Barriault versus Craig. Okay. Barriault's right there. Paul Craig is obviously trying to work his way in. So that's where I figured we would land there. And then I will hop right into Barriault because Marc-Andre Barriault, I actually have fighting the loser of Barriault versus Craig. So there we are.
There we are. Indeed. Okay, moving on to yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to do my Barriault.
Oh, my bad, dude.
You really don't want people to match people up tonight.
No, he doesn't want losers. We don't do losers here, is what he's saying.
The winners are here.
I went with Abus Magomedov simply because I feel like they are both guys who have shown talent at different times, but who have both kind of underachieved from what people thought they could do. So I was like, let's put them in there and see who deserves to kind of keep getting looks here.
Like it.
I think Abus Magomedov has heavily underachieved. I think that's a fair...
Definitely more so than Barriault, yeah.
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Omar, your thoughts on Mr. Barriault?
I said it already. The loser of Barriault versus Craig.
Okay, moving on to the featherweight division. This fight opened the main card of UFC 297, once again, at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And in this bout, Movsar Evloev defeated Arnold Allen by unanimous decision. All three judges saw it the same way, 29-28 in favor of the Russian, Movsar Evloev. Mark, start us off with your take of Evloev getting yet another W.
This was a really good fight. I enjoyed this fight. I thought both guys showed a lot. I do see people on MMA Decisions, a lot of people, trying to score this fight for Arnold Allen and say that he won round 1 in addition to the obvious round 3. No. But guys, he did not. Like I wanted Arnold Allen to win this fight too.
Yeah.
But the striking in round 1 was practically even before the wrestling even came into play. And Arnold did an unreal job defending the wrestling, with the scrambles and all his Granby rolls. But Evloev did just as unreal of a job holding on through all of it, and he was landing punches any chance he got. He definitely took round 1. It's not really up for debate, so I'm not sure how people are scoring that the other way. And then round 2 was the Movsar Evloev show. He's suddenly beating Arnold Allen in the striking. He hurt him. He wobbled him. He cut him. Like, he really showed a lot in round 2. It was a good sign for him going forward as he fights at the top of the top here to see his striking making those kind of strides. Because there was a time, I might have even said this myself last week, which is that he doesn't really land with impact. And he fucking did in round 2. So that bodes well for him. And then, yes, we did get an absolute animal version of Arnold Allen in round 3, which was awesome to see. It seems like getting wobbled in round 2 really clicked him on, and he was far more aggressive. All of a sudden, his sprawl was on point. He was stalking Evloev. He was fantastic in round 3. And, again, similar to what I said about Barriault, you wonder if Allen could have got himself that dialed up earlier in the fight, if things could have been different, but they weren't. And Evloev clearly won 2 of those rounds, and he marches on, still undefeated. Oh, and I do want to bring up, I skipped past this, the knees, because you wonder what Allen could have maybe done different if Goddard didn't stop it in round 3 for those knees. But this is yet another example of why MMA rules are bullshit, because
I hate that hand rule.
Ontario doesn't do the weight-bearing thing. If your hand is touching at all, you are down. So Goddard was right in that instance. So it's not like Allen got fucked. It's just that the rules are stupid, and Ontario says you're down if you're touching at all.
Yeah.
Wow. Omar, you don't like that rule? You think it should be weight-bearing or not, or what?
Yeah, I think they should have their knees on the goddamn floor. I don't think, like, if you're bent over, and it might be the Muay Thai in me, but if you've got them bent over like that, I should be able to knee you in the fucking face. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Legit.
You don't want to get kneed in the face? Drop your knee. Go down to the ground. Like, this right. Like, hand posting shit is, and we've maybe seen 10-15% of the time that happens where it's like a natural not trying to take advantage of the rule set situation, right? Every other time, maybe 80% of the time, if not more, it's people taking advantage, holding down the ground just so that they can't get hit in the face, not actually doing anything, but just trying to stall the fight out. And it's annoying. To that point, just maybe to play devil's advocate a little bit, it should allow people and should force people to start kneeing to the body a lot more and start working to the body a lot more in those positions, especially if you have the head control. You can still hit to the body. They need to start, putting a little bit more variety in that sense. But the taking advantage of that rule set is one of the things I hate the most. It's like, to me, it's like flopping in goddamn whatever sport.
You think one championship does it best, and they just say, knee him anytime?
I think if we had a one championship type of rule set, I think we'd be getting yellow cards all over the place with that kind of shit.
What do you mean yellow cards? I mean that in one, you're allowed to knee somebody on the ground anytime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but there's no
how they yellow card you for stalling and stuff.
Yeah. But they also don't do knees or elbows. Right?
No, they do.
That? No, that's PFL. I'm sorry, mixing things up.
Well.
Anyway, Omar, what do you think of this fight?
Yeah, thank you. Get us back on track.
What fucking fight are we on right now? Oh, I thought it was a sad fight, man. You know me. I was looking for Allen to win that fight. I definitely wanted Allen to win that fight. And it was sad because I had no way to say Allen won that fight. He was definitely behind the entire time. I don't know if that bouncy style, that was new, right? Like, I'm not bugging. We haven't really seen him with all of that movement before. He's usually pretty stocky and like tends to stay in one place relatively when he fights. I don't know if I remember.
I mean, maybe he accentuated it because he was trying to be a moving target for shots, but I do feel like he has kind of bouncy footwork.
I don't know, man. It just didn't seem like it was lending to his style very well. Like the one thing that we all know about Allen cracks, man. Allen puts
He
weight
does.
on his punches. He knows
Yeah.
how to really do stuff like that. And I felt like a lot of that wasn't happening because he was so mobile. And so a lot of the shots that he was throwing just weren't really deterring Movsar because they weren't really landing on Movsar the way that they should have. And to Movsar's credit, he was the one throwing heavy shit in that fight. And he was backing up Allen a lot of that fight as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I came away from there thinking that Allen is not a better fighter, or that Evloev, I guess for that matter, is a better fighter than Allen. But I do now feel like with 2 losses in a row, I feel like Allen is still trying to figure out what works best for him. I think he had an idea. I think he was comfortable with his style, and I think he ran into Max Holloway that made him perhaps think a lot about what he can change. And I think he might have changed too much and taken away a part of his game that makes him that makes his success essential. So hopefully he figures out that balance. We know he's in TriStar. TriStar is a notoriously technical camp. And sometimes they will rein people in, sometimes not for the better. So hopefully he finds a balance there that works for him, and we see Arnold Allen in better form next time.
Okay. Staying with you, Omar. What do you think should be next for Mr. Movsar Evloev at the featherweight weight level?
I think Evloev has gotten to the point now where I think he's gold. I think he needs the title shot, and I think he should be fighting the winner of Topuria and Volkanovski.
Ooh, Mark.
It seems like a lot of people think this, and I mean, I guess I get it. Like, he's undefeated, but I'm trying to pull up his last few fights. So going back to 2021, I'll just go back his whole in the UFC. Sung Woo Choi, Enrique Barzola, Mike Grundy, Nick Lentz, Hakeem Dawodu, and then the last 3 are Dan Ige, the close fight with Diego Lopes, and now Arnold Allen.
Diego Lopes, though, wasn't his fault, though, right? Like, he was supposed to fight somebody.
Yeah, it was
big
late
in that
replacement.
fight.
Yeah, fair. I don't know if I feel like that resume screams title shot. I get it that he's like the fresh option, especially if Volk wins against Topuria. But I kind of want to say I'd rather see him fight the winner of Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez.
Okay.
When Yair and Brian is April, right? And then Volk because they're doing it at Noche, Mexico. Or
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that's
Wait,
April.
that's April? Damn, I thought that was sooner.
I think it's April. And then you'll have Volkanovski and Topuria.
No, it's February.
Oh, it's February.
Yeah.
So when the hell is Volkanovski and Topuria?
Also February? Not the same
Right?
card. Yeah, Volk and Topuria is 1 week before Ortega and Yair.
Oh. Okay. Well, yeah, your idea might be better.
Thank you.
I didn't realize it was so. I could have swore that shit was in April.
Yeah, and then for Allen, just to keep it moving, I wouldn't hate him fighting, I guess, the loser of Ortega and Yair, which I hadn't thought about until right now. But I kind of like the idea of him fighting Edson Barboza. I feel like Edson deserves a shot at someone ranked above him the way he's been fighting lately. And I actually think he makes for an interesting test to kind of help us continue to gauge where Arnold Allen is truly at. And I for whatever reason, I like that fight.
Like it a lot, actually.
That's a jump, dude. That's a. I mean, for where they are in the rankings right now, that's,
Why? Where do they have Edson?
like 10 or 11.
All right, and
And
what's
then
Allen, like 6?
4.
Well, he ain't 4 anymore.
I think he
He's
is
gonna have to be. He'll be under Ilya and he'll be under Evloev, so he'll be like 7.
He's 4.
He'll
dog.
be 6. Yeah, but Evloev's gonna jump him, obviously,
Oh, because it's Monday. They haven't updated the goddamn things, is what is happening.
Yeah, so he'll be 6, probably. 6 versus 11. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I had Josh Emmett for Arnold Allen. Stylistically, that's a
fun fight too.
Yeah, somebody's going out in that fight for sure.
Yeah, man, for sure. Shall we move on?
We shall.
All right. Shall we do lightning for the rest, gentlemen?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Okay, lightning round. Where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their quick takes, quick reactions on these results. Here we go. And the feature bout of the prelims in the bantamweight division, Garrett Armfield defeated Brad Katona, the only 2-time tough winner, by unanimous decision. All 3 scorecards read 29-28 for Armfield. Mark, go first.
This was a solid scrap, but it's one that Garrett Armfield clearly won. He looked fantastic in rounds 1 and 2. I mean, really impressive. It's not easy to handle what Brad Katona brings into the cage, and he handled it incredibly well. The boxing in particular really stood out. He looked super slick, combos, ripping the body, great feints, slips. I was pretty impressed with what he showed in there. And this is another one where I see people trying to score this fight for Katona, and I don't even think it was debatable. I think Brad lost this fight.
Omar?
Yeah, I don't remember Garrett Armfield being so goddamn good, honestly. And it's not to say that he was bad or anything like that, but it was a really impressive performance. It was really stand out to me. I thought he looked really good. And just like Mark said, Brad Katona is not an easy out, and he is not somebody that generally people style on. And Garrett Armfield was doing some work in there, man. He was not making Brad Katona look great in there. I thought the striking was on point from Garrett Armfield. I thought the scrambles were good from Garrett Armfield, and I thought he looked great. I was really impressed.
Okay. In the featherweight division, Sean Woodson defeats Charles Jourdain by split decision. All 2 scorecards read 29-28 for Woodson and 1 for Jourdain. Omar, go first.
This was a scrap. I think we all knew this was going to be a scrap just on paper. I thought Woodson was able to edge out this fight. I thought his range was a little bit more solid than Jourdain was. Jourdain definitely had some good moments in there. He had some good activity in there. He definitely kept a nice pace. But I thought when it came down to it, man, Sean Woodson was just countering a little bit better, landing a little bit more, and really working off of the momentum that Charles Jourdain was giving him. So I thought it was a good performance from Woodson. I thought it was a close fight. I don't think it was a dominant, performance one way or the other, but I thought Sean Woodson definitely won that fight.
Mark?
Yeah, this was a tricky fight because both round 2 and 3 were pretty close rounds. So even though Sean won round 1 really clearly, there's a world where I guess this could have gone to Jourdain. And for a minute, they both thought they were living in that world. I don't think I've ever seen that where both fighters misheard the winner that Bruce announced. That was wild for a few seconds there. Cormier had to be Sean Woodson won the fight.
It was close to what was that? When did that happen? Eve Edwards and that happened one other time where they had to tell them in the back.
He announced it wrong, or just that people didn't hear?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't wrong at all. He said
no, not this one. He said it perfectly. This one, they just didn't hear.
Yeah, the Eve Edwards one though, they gave the wrong winner in the cage.
Yeah, okay.
And then in the back, they told him, "No, actually, you won the fight." I forget who he was fighting that night.
Yeah, I don't.
Might have been Matt Serra.
Both
actually,
fighters mishear Bruce, and they both did. Like, it was wild.
Yeah,
and I get it. I guess Charles sounds like Sean. But that was crazy. But anyway, I do give Charles credit. He really tried to find different avenues to combat the size, but all in all, he did get mostly nullified by Sean the way that I thought he might. So Sean keeps moving up the ladder. Not a thrilling performance, but a solid one against a dangerous guy.
Yeah,
I think it was when Bruce he held the very first syllable of Sean. He went Sean, and they were like, "Is it Charles or Sean?" Yeah. But then he clearly says the sniper, and then he clearly says Woodson.
Yeah, I guess the crowd was just so loud.
They were just like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
it was very funny. Okay, lightning. At a catch weight of 139.75 pounds, Ramon Tavares defeats, how do you say his first name again?
Serhi? I already
Serhi
forgot,
City?
actually. Yeah.
He defeated
I think
City
that was it.
by, again, another split decision. 2 scorecards read 29-28 for Tavares and 29-28 for City. Omar, go first.
So we should point out that Tavares missed weight for this fight. He came in at 139.75?
Mike just
0.75.
did.
So, whoops. All right. Anyway, banger of a fight. I loved the violence in this
It's a great
fight.
fight.
I love back and forth fights like this. I love fights that really test sort of the mettle of these guys in there. And this was definitely one of them, man. This was not an easy fight for either one of these guys to get through. And I don't think this was Ramon's fight. I do think I had City winning this fight. But to be honest, man, I was having so much fun watching this fight. I really didn't give a shit by the end of it. It was just such a good, fun fight. But I did have City winning that fight.
These two guys were after my heart. I mean, this was a fantastic fight. Just a hell of a debut for both of these guys. A great matchup. You had this walk 'em down sniper in City against a power counter puncher in Tavares, and it just blended perfectly. And I got to tell you, I don't have an issue with the decision. I think round 3 was exceedingly close. I watched it a couple times. I score it practically even every time I watch it. And it obviously decided the fight because round 1 was all Tavares. City was not quite in his groove yet at that point, and Tavares was countering beautifully and landing hard. But then we had the classic City round in round 2 where the man gets dropped, gets his nose exploded, is basically drowning in blood, and still pushes forward at such an insane pace that he doesn't just end up weathering the storm, but he takes over the round and very clearly wins it. Like, that was a special round from City to weather all that and still win the round. But then, as I said, round 3 was really close. City was landing more, but Tavares was landing harder, more impactful, and it ended up going Tavares' way.
Boom.
Sorry, I had to spend some extra time on that one. It was so good.
It's okay.
Ramon Tavares is actually a local here in Florida. I knew I've seen him fight at a regional event over here. One I didn't see him fight in was the Orlando card where he fought Crazy Horse.
Ooh.
Yeah, dude, I saw that.
What the fuck?
I mean, he's just a layup at this point, though. He loses to everybody. He shouldn't still be fighting.
Dude.
But yeah, he used to be a stud.
How did I miss a Crazy Horse regional fight in Orlando? What the hell?
Okay. In the women's strawweight division, Jillian Robertson puts it on Polyana Viana, winning by TKO at 312 in round number 2. Mark, go first.
Omar, that face was you looking at his record, wasn't it? Yep. Jillian Robertson. Yeah, Viana needed to keep this one standing, and when she did get to strike, you could see why. But she just offered zero resistance to Jillian either time that she went to grab a single. She just got immediately taken down in each round. And from there, we know the level of Jillian Robertson's grappling, and it's not low. You know, she was nasty in both rounds. Almost caught Polyana in a couple subs in the first, and then in the second, she just took the back mount instead and rained down shots until the ref called it. So really nice win for her.
Omar?
Yeah, I mean, she really wore down Polyana in that one. You could see, especially once it started to hit the ground, it was just a systematic breakdown of Polyana's will. And eventually she just kept beating on her until she rolled over and just waited for the ref to call the fight. Fantastic fight from Jillian Robertson.
Okay, going down now to the early prelims in the welterweight division. Sam Patterson gets the win over Johan. How do you say his last name? Linus by submission via rear naked choke at 2:03 of round number 1. Omar, take it.
Holy shit. Linus has had some good hype behind him and seemingly on paper, not an easy out, but you can't tell Sam Patterson that shit because he made it look as easy as it gets. So great performance from Sam Patterson. Not really much to say about that, man. He was in there and out pretty damn quick.
That's right. Mark?
Yeah, Johan got caught. He put himself in a situation that he should not have been in with Sam Patterson. He had a pronounced advantage in the striking and the power, in the hitability of Sam Patterson, which we saw in Patterson's debut when he got knocked out. But he put himself into the clinch, and he let himself get front headlocked and let it become a grappling match. And in a grappling match, all those advantages go away and they swing heavily towards Sam Patterson, and they swung very, very quickly here. So he set up the rear naked choke nicely, sunk it in, and got himself his first UFC W.
Omar.
He went.
Fuck. In the women's bantamweight division, Jasmine Jasudovic. How do you say?
I can't remember.
I've
heard it said like 4 times.
Sometimes they say Jasudavicius, and sometimes they say Jazdavicius. Like they go both ways.
Yes, I've heard that one.
Jasudavicius. Whatever.
She said it once on the MMA hour. She said it once on the MMA hour. What it actually is, because there is a version of it that is like how people have pronounced it to her whole life,
and it's probably neither of those.
And it's actually how her family pronounces it, and they are 2 different things. And I can't fucking remember which one is which or which either one is anyway. I think it's French.
Sounds like it could be Greek.
It's something.
I don't know.
Anyway, Omar, she won by submission and a kind of choke.
Greek,
Third
actually.
round. What are your thoughts, Omar?
She won by murder. That was probably the most violent fight of the night. Maybe the city one might have been somewhere equal there, but it wasn't as competitive as the city one was. Jasudavicius went out there and beat the shit out of Priscilla Cachoeira, and it got worse. What the hell was it? It was a 10-7, 10-8, 10-8. Like the last round might have been a 10-8 or something like that. If it had finished, I mean, it was probably one of the worst ass beatings we've seen in quite some time. And like, it was to the point where I felt bad for Cachoeira. Like there was nothing good about that fight for her. Like that was worst case scenario. And it wasn't like I got caught and, she hit me with a punch I didn't see. She beat the shit out of that girl for basically 3 whole rounds until she found the exit at the end of the 3rd round. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
It was. Mark.
Yeah, all that. I mean, this is what it's supposed to look like if Amanda Nunes fights Priscilla Cachoeira. Like, not if Jasmine Jasudavicius does. And I know she was the favorite and all, but my God, this was insanely dominant. Cachoeira was completely lost from bottom. Jasmine was on fire in every possible regard. She came out looking to claim a body in this fight. And in the end, that's what she did. That was a scary statement from her to remind people that she's still a problem after she took that loss to Tracy Cortez in her last one.
That's right. Okay, last one, boys. Opening this card on UFC 297 one last time in Toronto, Canada, at a cash weight of 127.5 pounds. Jimmy Flick gets the win over Malcolm Gordon by submission via arm triangle choke at 117 of round number 2. Mark, take it first.
Malcolm Gordon fought a literal perfect fight here outside of one mistake. Like, he was so aggressive on the feet in both rounds, which is exactly what you want to do to Jimmy because he's very weak there. But if you let him settle in, he'll find ways to take it to the mat, and Gordon was not doing that. And then he even grappled fantastically in round 1, but he made one mistake in round 2 where he overswung on a punch and fell forward and let Jimmy Flick take his back. And when you let Jimmy Flick get you in a dominant grappling position, it does not take him long to set something up. And he did exactly that, and he got himself a W that he really needed.
That's right. Omar, take us home.
Yeah, man, that's kind of the gamble that you play when you throw that many hooks, especially if you're not, even with your weight distribution on your hooks. You can fall forward one way or the other. It's one of those things that gets people to lose takedowns quite a bit. The wrestlers and people who are looking to go down to the ground are looking for that looping hook to duck under it and take your leg and take your life. And that is exactly what happened for Jimmy Flick. And I would even say it was a comeback a little bit because, like Mark said, round 1 was not going Jimmy Flick's way. So
that's right.
Good comeback fight for or comeback win for Jimmy Flick.
And that does it, folks.
To close the lightning round, Jasudavicius is Lithuanian.
Oh,
what are the odds of 2 Lithuanian women in the UFC.
Yeah,
Who's the
that's
other
true.
one?
Rose, right? Isn't Rose Lithuanian?
Oh, is
Yeah.
she? There you go.
I don't know if she
Yeah.
is
Continue.
American by birth or Lithuanian by birth. I feel like she might be Lithuanian by birth.
She might actually be Lithuanian by birth. Yeah.
Anyhow,
I
short
did the
one
lighting first, guys.
this time.
No.
What?
I was saying that I handled the thunder sounds. I don't know if you guys heard that. Please move on.
Oh my God. Between you and Mike with this fucking sound.
All right, boys. It's a short one tonight. Only an hour and 20 minutes out the gate. And it's time for bed already. I'm a little disappointed.
We got a couple things to do here still, Mike.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do
Rankings,
the sphere. Oh, Mark, put a bow. It's over.
Mike's fucking done.
I'm like, bye.
Man.
Okay, Mark, take over. You have
All
the
right.
floor. Give us an update on the Priaulx rankings.
So it's not a huge update this week. We had no notable falls, but we had 3 risers. So we will get through them quickly, and then we will hit the sphere. The biggest mover of the week was Sean Woodson. I had him still down at number 45 in the featherweight ranks. He just hadn't really beaten any name that had true value as of yet, and he jumps now from number 45 all the way to number 24 after beating Charles Jourdain. So pretty nice jump for him. Next one is Garrett Armfield. He was at number 56 in my bantamweight rankings. He now moves up to number 42 after beating Brad Katona, so a nice little move for him as well. And then a smaller one, but notable because of the high level, is Movsar Evloev. He was number 9 for me coming into this fight, and he is now number 5.
Woo!
And that is all she wrote.
Wow. He really is within striking distance of that title, man. Okay.
Yep.
Omar, take over. What's going on in the MMA sphere?
Well, I don't have any real news. I have one fight announcement so far. We'll probably have a lot more next week. But for right now, Leroy Murphy is out of his fight with Dan Ige, and Andre Fili will be filling in. This will be going down to UFC Vegas 86 on February 10th. The only other thing I kind of wanted to mention and bring up is the upcoming ONE FC card that's coming up this weekend. A little bit of, as we know, ONE FC likes to mix and match the stuff that they're doing. It's not always Muay Thai. It's not always MMA. It's always a what the fuck is that? Hot pot? I don't know. It's a goddamn mishmash of all kinds of different things. But a couple of fights that I think are super interesting to look at are the main event is Superlek versus Sagawa, or Takeru Sagawa. The dude is pretty fucking good when it comes to kickboxing. It should be a really good kickboxing event. It is not Muay Thai specifically, so there won't be any knees or any elbows, I believe, in this fight. It'll be straight up hands and straight up shin. It'll be a good fight, though. I'm actually looking forward to that. And then you also have Shinya Aoki versus Sage Northcutt on this card as well. Shinya Aoki is an OG of OGs when it comes to Japanese MMA and MMA in general. Definitely one of the original premier grapplers in the MMA space, and has just been going. He's also talked wild shit in the past. He's definitely a heel of sorts on that side of the world. But a fight with him and Sage Northcutt should be super interesting, especially after Sage Northcutt's recent submission win in his ONE FC recent ONE FC fight. So I'm super excited to see how that goes. And last, but definitely not least,
oh my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
just
wanted to say something to that fight. I feel like Sage is so physically larger than Shinya Aoki. Not like height. I think they're almost the same thing.
Yeah,
it's just like Aoki has even fought at featherweight, yeah, and Sage has fought at like middleweight. Like it's very different girth of human in that fight.
Yeah, and they will be fighting at 170.
170,
yeah. And the last person on here, I guess, really, if you're listening, you might not even know who homeboy is, but Yoshihiro Akiyama, better known as Sexy Yama, will be fighting Nikki Holtzkin. It is a catchweight fight of 78 187.25 pounds, and it's a special rules fight. I don't really know what the fucking rules are, and it doesn't say. So it might have something to do with takedowns or clinching or something along those lines. I don't think Sexyama's trying to sprawl and brawl anymore. I think he's just trying to go in there and bang. But for those of you who are relatively new to the space, you might know him more recently as one of the contestants on the Physical 100, which was a game show out of South Korea on Netflix. Actually, really good fucking show.
That's
You
cool.
should totally watch it if you haven't seen it. But Sexyama was on it, and it was fantastic to see him do really well in something outside of MMA that was still in regards to his physical prowess. So I loved me some Sexyama back then. He wasn't great, but he was always a good time. And I was a fan then. I'm a fan now. I will be watching.
Nice.
Very concise. I like it.
Wow.
Let's go to sleep early.
Yeah, baby.
Hour.
So excited.
An hour, 30-ish minutes, 30, 40 minutes. Not bad. Not bad.
I'm always a little bummed out though when there's no MMA on.
Oh, I know, dude.
Yeah.
When I looked and I was like looking at the card, I was like, oh, cool. This is a good card. And then I was like, I saw the date and I was like, wait, what? That date seems far away. Like, it's like the whole process in your mind. I'm like, fuck, there's no MMA.
What am I going to do this weekend?
Yeah, that's literally where I'm at with it sometimes. I'm like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do then?
Yeah.
And you don't even like any other sports.
Yeah, I would have rather
Not-
been this weekend because I was trying to watch Packers and Niners when the freaking fights were on Saturday. Like if they could have bumped this pay-per-view to next week, we would have been good because the games next week are only on Sunday.
And I couldn't tell you how many dudes were trying to talk to me about this fucking game while I'm sitting at this bar, and I could not give a bigger nod shit about this game.
Mark, do you have any favorite non-New York teams?
Non-New York teams?
Right.
No.
Like if
fuck
they're
them
not
all.
playing New York, you root for them. No?
No. New York fan.
Yeah, I believe his
hear my
comment,
question?
Mike, in case you didn't, he said fuck them all, is what he said.
Fuck them all. Okay. All right.
I mean, I've had favorite players. Like, I mean, I'm going back, but like, I always rooted for Iverson. Oh, he's my favorite athlete ever. Like examples like that. But no, I don't root for other teams. Fuck other teams.
Fuck other teams.
I did have baseball players I really liked when I was a kid. Nomar Garcia-Parra was one that I really enjoyed. Who was the right fielder in the Yankees way back when?
The
I can't
right
remember this
fielder
fucking
for the
guy's name.
Yankees?
Yeah, like in the 90s into the early
Who
2000s.
played right?
Paul
Paul
O'Neill?
O'Neill?
Paul O'Neill. That's, I was a big
Love
fan
Paul
of his
O'Neill.
back in
One
the
of
day.
my favorite Yankees.
Oh, he
ever.
was great. He was the fucking
Dude, I haven't thought about some of these dudes in like over a decade now. But yeah.
Well, gentlemen, let's take advantage of this short night and turn in, baby. Hey, thanks for watching and listening. Like I said earlier, drop us a comment down below. Let us know what you think of the show. With that being said, we'll see you next week when we preview the next fight night. Adios.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey.
Mine.